You can customize your ACC and use the money you save to get a more comprehensive mortgage protection, income protection. So if you do get sick, you're covered. And a lot of business owners don't know how this works and the whole process. So I interview someone that does this every day for a living, was actually given an agency by ACC so they can do it all digitally. So we actually unpack it, how it works, who can use it, and what's the benefit of customizing your ACC. A lot of business owners don't know you can actually customize your ACC. So I guess who can do it, and when do people sort of think about it? What's the benefit of changing it?
The benefit of changing it and thinking about when to do that is pretty much any time. The key thing to remember with if someone is converting to Cover Plus Extra, Cover Plus Extra is paid in advance because it's an agreed value policy. So the billing period is 1 April through to 31 March. So if you go on to Cover Plus Extra at any time throughout the financial year, in that first year, it's going to be based on a pro rata period, because anytime after 1 April, the billing time of the Cover Plus Extra levy is reduced type thing. But then every Cover Plus Extra policy renews on 1 April. So the next year is when they'll get that full invoice. So that, and then you've got standard cover is billed sort of in arrears. It's billed in arrears. So you work a year, you file your income, and that's when ACC charges you. So always in that first year, that first transitioning year, there's going to be, two levy bills come through, one for Cover Plus Extra and one for the previous year. And a lot of people feel like they're being double dipped on, but they're not, because it's different financial years. So there is no right or wrong time to do it. I feel that because Cover Plus Extra is definitely superior for self-employed people, the sooner they get on it, the better.
And just be able to explain why it's superior, like the process of just having the generic ACC and then Cover Plus Extra. Like, why would a business owner think about it?
Well, it just gives them a lot more certainty because it's an agreed value policy. So you can choose how much of your income you want to have covered by ACC, which is great because you can align the dollars that you have to spend with the statistics of when they respond, which is only 30% of all disability claims. Okay, because they only cover for accidents, not illnesses, degenerative diseases, and things like that. So ideally, somebody would have a combination of ACC and private insurance because it's all about protecting them better as key people. But so that's great that you can choose how much of your income you want to have covered by ACC. It's an agreed value, which I said. Um, it gives you certainty because it's a locked in amount about one, what you'll get at claim time, and also what you have to pay to ACC every year. So if there's somebody out there that their income fluctuates from year to year, well, their levy bill is going to fluctuate with that. So Cover Plus Extra will lock it in, and it just gives you a lot more certainty. There's
And
things
then the
like
payout as well. Yeah, carry on. Yep.
there's things like if you've got two shareholders in a business or two or more shareholders in a business, and say one of them does the business admin or project management or something like that, and then the other one might be on the tools, for example, we've got the flexibility to change the CU codes, which can help to reduce the levies, especially if you're talking about a tradie business. So a really common setup with those sort of small companies is that husband and wife team, the wife does the admin and he's on the tools. So with Cover Plus Extra, what we can achieve is by putting her onto a business admin code, which is much less levy rate because it's a lot less risky, right? So that helps to reduce their levy bill as well. There's also no partial returns on Cover Plus Extra. So what that means is on standard cover, as you recover out of an injury, the doctor's going to say at some point, well, you can go back to work for 20 hours a week. Well, ACC are going to adjust your entitlement based on what you can do. So with Cover Plus Extra, they will stay on claim until they've been 100% medically fit to return to work. So it just gives you that extra time to recover properly, but also not worry financially about what you'll be missing out on if your entitlement's adjusted.
And then my other concern is like you got fluctuating income as a business owner, and then now suddenly you got to prove your income to make your claim. And so like and it's based on last year's income. So you're like, okay, I had a bad year last time,
Yeah.
which led to me making poor decisions and having an accident.
Yes.
Now I get less money.
Totally. Yeah, and there's a massive grey area around that as well with what the recipient of, or the claimant expects, because they'll be going, well, I'm having a great year this year. Whereas last year was completely different. They may have taken some time off to go on an extended holiday. They may have had that situation where they were sick or something like that. Yeah, so it's always based on the previous 52 weeks. And the other thing with that is people who are new to business. That can cause problems for them as well, especially if they haven't got any self-employed earnings that have been declared through to the IRD. So Cover Plus Extra, once that policy's been put in place, you're actually covered from then on. So it just gives a level of certainty for people if they're newly self-employed.
It makes sense. So like, if they didn't have an income when they start, they're not paying anything to ACC, or do they still have to find a way to pay ACC?
No. So if we're talking about Cover Plus Extra, they don't. Well, the idea is that they are earning more than 30,000, but this is the good thing about CPX is that what you declare to the IRD as taxable income is different to what your total earnings are. So with your business, right, you get your turnover, your gross turnover, and that pays for your gas, your phone, your vehicle expenses, your home office, that sort of thing, which means that you can declare less to the IRD, but at claim time, you still need that money to pay for those expenses. So Cover Plus Extra allows you to do that because we can take somebody up to 80,000 without having to prove an income, because ACC realise that you still have those expenses to pay as a business owner. They don't stop when you're on claim.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Can you go lower with the generic one or with Cover Plus? Like, for example, my taxable income is only 10 grand, and the lowest you can go, I can't remember what Cover Plus Extra is like 30 something.
Yep,
Is
35,
there a point
400.
where, oh, yeah, well, there you go. You'd think you're an expert or something. So, yeah, is it one lower than the other initially? Or is it still a minimum you have to pay?
Okay, so yeah, on Cover Plus Extra, that's the minimum that you can lock in is 35,400. So you can't go any lower than that. If you're on standard cover and your taxable income is 10,000, you may only pay a levy on that 10,000, but at claim time, you would only, your entitlement would be aligned with what your taxable income is, so that you would only get $8,000. And
Yeah,
that would
80% of it, huh?
Yeah, and that would be divided out by 52 weeks. So it would hardly even be worth claiming.
Jeez. And is there like a limit on Cover Plus Extra like there is with
Yeah,
the generic ACC?
yeah, there is. So there's a maximum of that is 113826. Just double checking that number. 113826 is the maximum for Cover Plus Extra. If you lock that amount in, you need to be able to prove that you actually do earn that amount.
Oh, is there a cap that you can go up
Yeah.
before you have to prove it?
There is a cap. 80,000 is the cap. So anything that you apply for over 80,000, you have to actually prove that you earn, that amount of money. There is a cap with ACC. Period. Whether it's Cover Plus Extra or standard cover that you're looking at. So, and this is actually another really big part of what I do, because I don't just do the Cover Plus Extra applications. So there's a maximum income that's leviable, right? And that number is for this financial year is 142,283. So if you consider a business owner who pays themselves a PAYE income and as well as a shareholder income, which they receive later on in the year, because that's not normally distributed until they know how much profit is available to allocate, right? So they might take 120,000 as their PAYE income, and then they might get another 50,000 from their their shareholder distribution later on. So that's a total of $170,000. Now, not all of that is leviable because the capped amount is 142,283. So what normally happens, or what quite often happens, is because the PAYE and the shareholder salaries are sort of invoiced through different ACC accounts, it's inadvertently often overcharged, and ACC double dip. So that's another massive part of what I do. So get refunds for people because of the overcharges. And it could be that it's a PAYE income and a shareholder salary from the same entity, or it could be that somebody's got a few different jobs, or a main job and then a side hustle, and they're earning an income from that. So it's filed through separate entity accounts. Yeah, so that's another thing that is always a red flag to me when I meet clients and I sort of start talking to them about how their income is derived. Is just looking at it. And especially if you think about husband and wife team, the wife might be just doing some books on the side, running the books, but she has a primary income, but she's also receiving a shareholder salary, which happens because of, income splitting and trying to minimize tax where they can, which is great on one side, but not so great on the other side. So it's just pulling it all apart. It's an absolute rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, I was glad you're here. So you have the person, they get salary and wages or a PAYE from somewhere, and then they get a non-PAYE. With the PAYE, is that has to be through the generic ACC?
Yeah, it does. Yep. Because one of the criteria for Cover Plus Extra is that you are non-PAYE. So
And yeah, you go.
you
Yeah.
go. If there was a business owner that was taking PAYE plus they received the shareholder salary, if they weren't willing to convert to 100% drawings, we wouldn't be able to change them to Cover Plus Extra. But sometimes, actually a lot of the time, with the motivation is in what the savings that we can achieve by restructuring them onto Cover Plus Extra, and so that's the motivating factor for them to make that change, because the idea is that with the savings that we've created, they can redirect that. And because I say this because normally the referral comes through to me from a financial advisor, so they're already having those conversations, right? So with what we can achieve with the savings, it can help fund the insurance program that they're implementing. So it can either fully fund it in some cases if the variables stack up, or partially fund it. So it just means that where they thought they might be having to spend $3,000 a year on their insurance program that they're putting in place, well, it's actually not that much money that they have to actually pull out of their pocket, because the ACC savings is going to fund some of that.
And so essentially when you say that example you gave, when you're saving the money, you're basically convincing them to go fully non-PAYE in the hope to save the money so you can do Cover Plus Extra. Is that what you're meaning?
Oh, look, I mean, I think that Cover Plus Extra is superior. So if that conversion makes sense for them in their business, then yeah, it's normally the conversation they have with their accountant. And if there's no reason for them to be on PAYE aside from being able to manage their tax obligations better, then it may work for them. It's not going to work for everybody. I've met plenty of people that they want that PAYE income because in the future they might want to get a mortgage, or they want that lending, for lending purposes, they need that history of the regular income coming through. So it's something that sometimes we have to park for a year or two and then come back to it.
And what's the most you ever saved? Like, were you ever like sprung like you had a husband, wife, and then, you changed this and that? Yeah. What was the max?
20,000.
Oh, that's crazy. What's the circumstance that leads to 20 grand yearly? Is it 20 grand you're saving?
Well, that one was because we were able to go back for 4 years and get the refund going back to 4 years. So for those guys, they were a husband and wife team, building company, both paying a builder's levy, but they were taking the PAYE plus a shareholder. They'd been overcharged, and so we were able to dial that back for 4 years. And we also put them both on Cover Plus Extra. So we were able to dial it down. So they might have been paying $5,000 each on standard cover. We dialed it down to $1,600 on Cover Plus Extra. But that wasn't included in that $20,000 savings. That was from overcharges.
That's great. So the overcharges, how do you even go about identifying? So you just say to them, hey, actually, I wasn't PAYE for the last 4 years. I was meant to be shareholder. Or like, what is that? How does that even happen?
Right. So I try and educate the people I work with, the advisors and accountants, just to keep in the back of their mind if they come across somebody whose income is derived from those means, just to sort of red flag it. And if I'm talking to them, I will, bring it up as well. So how I identify it is, it always red flags to me anyways, but if we start talking about income numbers and they're, getting up there, up around the maximum levels, I'll get them to send me an income summary so I can see a breakdown of how their income was paid to them. And then I will cross-reference that against the invoices that I can see through my ACC. Once I'm linked with the client, I can see all of that stuff. And once I've thought to myself, or done my process and identified an overcharge, then I just go to ACC, send them the information. I know exactly what they want to be able to do their part. And yeah, they normally come back to me within 6 to 8 weeks saying, yep, refund will be allocated as follows. And yeah.
That's great. So what are the circumstances that lead to a refund? Basically, you're paying yourself non-PAYE and PAYE, and you had Cover Plus Extra on one and then the regular one on the other? Or
Yeah, no, it would normally just be if they're receiving incomes from multiple entities or multiple, avenues. So it'd be a combination of a PAYE and a shareholder salary, or um, uh, drawings, or drawings from multiple entities, or a PAYE and then another PAYE from another entity. I don't know. There's no real one size fits all. It's just you find this information out when you talk to people. But yeah, it's interesting how many people don't sort of realize that they could be getting overcharged. And it's unfortunately the accountants often say, well, it's ACC, you've got to pay it. And you do, but there are limitations with what you have to pay.
interesting. So it's generally speaking, there's more than one entity paying them. Has to have that.
No, not necessarily. It might be under
Okay.
the one company, but the PAYE. So with ACC, right? You've got your company ACC account, but under that, you have if you have a payroll and you have shareholders who receive a shareholder income, that's two. That's a E and a D account. Yeah, so two different accounts, and so the invoices look different. I don't know how it works within the ACC system. I honestly don't know why it's not better managed. I couldn't answer that one for you, but I just know that probably 30% of what I do is getting refunds for people.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, it makes sense. Like they're not that incentivized to find and make sure it's accounts well, and they're
Yeah,
a large government, so they're not necessarily always efficient. IID is pretty impressive. Their technology is quite interesting.
yeah.
So how do you? So even though you're not necessarily a financial advisor anymore, are you just saying, hey ACC, this person signed me as authority to have access to the account, or how do you even?
Yeah, well, see, the ACC used to have a process of, giving party people access to, your ACC account, and I just used to use their usual process. But there is another process that accountants can use, and they have self-linking ability. They just need to have a contract signed with ACC. ACC approached me um, last year. I guess it was around this time last year. They approached me and they said, "Look, you're one of our bigger agencies as such, so we would like to offer you self-linking ability. You just need to sign this document, so it's an agreement that I, abide by their rules and that. I needed to have my own internal access forms, so if I'm ever audited, they need to know that I'm not just linking with people as and when I want to. There's actually a proper authority process that the client's giving me access to their account. So I developed all of that, and once I get those documents signed, I link with them through my ACC, and then I can do my job, which is great because I remove ACC out of the process because they were taking sometimes a few weeks to process my access forms, and then you've got the problem of stuff going missing as well. So yeah.
So accountants had that right if they asked for it, and is there anyone else can? But I saw the financial advisors can be like an intermediary of sort, but not. I don't know if that links
Yeah,
things.
no, they can get those the ACC access forms signed, and they can get visibility to the client's account through that. But then they're at the mercy of ACC when ACC, process the thing. I can do it straight away.
So you just make changes like within the.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to be agreed changes.
Yeah.
They're agreed upon, whether it's with the client and their financial advisor or just with the client but there's a process that we talk. They need to understand what's happening, and that's why I like the financial advisors to be involved, just so that there's full transparency around what's happening with that client's financial services needs, which involves accountants, financial advisors, and me.
So those are the only people. So like an accountant could write for authority or link an account, and an advisor could ask for authority, and then it might take a few weeks to process it, and then they log in, or what does it look like?
Yep. So there's a thing called my ACC for Business, and basically you log in. It's a bit of a process to log in, and that's another reason why people use me, because they just sort of too hard basket to do that. But you log in and you've got all your transactions are there. You can pay your bills online, update your account details, your contact details, all that sort of thing. But it's a bit of an admin headache for people to actually, get set up on it first. But people don't understand it. They'd rather just have an expert who go, could you just tell me what should I do here? I get a lot of clients ringing me before they pay their bills, just going, hey, look, could you please check to make sure this is correct before I pay it? And I quite often find mistakes. So I'm so happy that they do that.
So you're basically trying to make sure they're not overpaying. Is that where the mistakes happen, or what are other mistakes people do with their ACC?
CU codes, see the levy classification. Sometimes clients are set up. Well, they've had an ACC account opened up, and the levy classification applied to it is one of the default manufacturing codes or default codes. I actually just did one this week. So this guy was a financial advisor. He has, up until last year, his only income source was PAYE, but he started writing business. So he got commission sales as well. So that was filed separately through to the IRD, right? So what happened was when that happened, ACC billed him, but because it was a new account, he had a manufacturing code applied to him where he should have been on like a financial services one. And so when I changed that, it immediately created a $167 credit for him.
Yeah. Okay. So fundamentally, ACC is assessing someone's risk and calculating levies based on how risky that is.
Yeah.
And then sometimes their systems aren't robust enough to track if someone's overpaying.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, okay. And what's it like? What's your special access like? What do you get to see? Like, is it learning anything interesting? Or?
Not really. It's actually annoying because I don't have a claims tab. So, not that I really promote that I help people with claims. I do a little bit just to sort of guide them through the initial setup process and being able to access their compensation. But with claim disputes, it's definitely not something I do because I don't have a medical background. I have financial services background. But my view is pretty much like everybody else's view. I just have about 22 pages of clients. rather than that one page that a single client would have.
Interesting. Yeah, God, that'd be a nightmare trying to I doubt they'd have an API. You know what I mean? Like the information and tracking. Whereas, how do you even go from an administrative standpoint, juggling all those things? What's been your lessons and scaling?
Ooh, um, yeah. I guess my I've been very fluid with my systems and processes because starting out when I did sort of almost 3-4 years ago, because I started officially 1 April, so we're coming up to starting my 4th year of business. But yeah, a lot has changed, and so once you sort of get comfortable in that process, then it changes again. So I've just learned to be really fluid and constantly just making things better. Learned a lot. I'm still learning all the time. I still weekly learn new things about what ACC do or don't do, or um, depending on who you speak to there, yeah, they're a little bit random sometimes. One person will say this, the other person will say the exact opposite. Um, yeah.
Yeah, how do you educate yourself? Do you just go to the resource page and ignore everything else?
I often find things through trial and error, really. I'll have a client come up, bring a case to me, and I'll go, this is a new one for me. I've not dealt with anything like this before. So, learn through that, and then just communicating with ACC. They're pretty good most of the time.
Yeah, most of them. And what's the best practice for paying the levy? So you pay a year in advance, and something like that. You were
Yep.
saying,
Yeah, you
and
do.
then
So that's another really important thing. So with Cover Plus Extra, you pay a year in advance. So this year I've had quite a few people basically give up on New Zealand and relocate to Australia. So what they've done, because they've paid their levy in advance, well, when they leave the country, what we do is we cease the policy then, which creates a credit, so they can be refunded for the future paid levies that they're not going to use.
interesting. Yeah, so you pay in advance, and let's say you're here 6 months, then you're gone. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I didn't use it, so give me my credit.
Correct. Yeah. So we deal with things like that as well. Yep.
Can you set up like an AP to pay a certain amount each month so that you don't
Yep.
miss the bill?
Yeah, 100%. You can set up. Their standard options are a payment over 3 months or 6 months, and you don't pay any additional admin fees for that. They used to have a 10-month option that is only by application now for new payment plans. Any existing ones, doesn't change, but that is an option by application. If you basically plead financial hardship, they'll definitely let it through. The main thing is they just want their money. So as long as you're communicating to them about your position and being able to pay stuff, they're very good with, you know, trying to help you.
That makes sense. So what's best practice to picking the 3 month one? What do you find? Like, where do people go wrong with this?
Look, there's no sort of set rule for that. It really depends on what your cash flow is like. So Cover Plus Extra, and also the time of the year that they come out. So Cover Plus Extra invoices are generally for renewal policies anyway. They're generally issued in May. So if you're now a full swing into the year, cash flow is not an issue. I say get it paid as quickly as possible. But you know what the payment plan that you had last year always just rolls over. So unless we physically change it, most people just set it up and then they're good to go.
So you can just pay a lump sum whenever is another way.
No, you've got to pay it by the due date. There's got to be some sort of payment plan set up and agreed upon, or you have to pay the invoice by the due date. Otherwise, what happens is that ACC will lapse the policy and bounce you back to standard cover. So,
So what happens? So then what is that like? It's not the ideal cover, but like you ended up paying more, or is it just
well,
you have
what
like late
happens
fees?
is so they'll create that Cover Plus Extra invoice, right? You don't pay it; they credit it, but you're not getting a refund. They're just crediting the invoice in their system. Um, and so then you bounce back to standard cover. And what will happen is for that financial year that you're in, you're not going to get an invoice for that until after the completion of that financial year, and then after you've filed your income to the IRD, because they need that information, that income information, before they know how much to charge you. And that's sometimes I've had people who have just sort of not been able to pay their bills. They've been struggling, so they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off, and yeah, we have worked through those little problem clients, and it's been great because they wouldn't have been able to do that themselves. So they would just give me a call, and it's fine. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind reapplying for them. It's absolutely fine, and that's what they get from having access to my services is just a quick phone call to me versus having to do it themselves or sit on hold for an hour trying to get someone at ACC to do it.
Oh, can you not just like log in my? I know obviously it's better that you do it, but like, how would you actually do it? Can you just go in, click a few buttons, or you have to fill out a form and talk to someone for 2 hours? What's the?
If you're going to deal with them over the phone, yeah, you basically have to go on hold and wait until they're able to answer your call. So I did the exercise once. I sat on hold for more than 60 minutes, and then the message said, "Sorry, we're overloaded. Can't take your call right now." Boom, call ended. I'm like, what?
Been there.
um, so there's that option, but I mean, they're trying to get people to DIY it nowadays, and so that's why they've created the My ACC sort of portal, right? So you can do it yourself, but it actually there's steps, there's verification steps and what have you for you to actually get registered onto it. I can't actually remember, but it's done through Real Me, and there's all these things that you've got
Yeah.
to do. So yeah.
How do you do it? So you do the link account, and it's a digital application, and
Yeah, yep,
what's
yep.
your pro?
So my account's already set up. All of my clients, I have visibility to all of them through my agency account. And so if I'm doing Cover Plus Extra for somebody, it's all done through that. It's not. It used to be a manual system, but now it's all done digitally. So yeah,
Yeah, nice, lucky you. Eh?
yeah. And there's a few different steps. I mean, it's not just application, boom, you're on. It's sometimes it gets stopped. Sometimes we have to do a few steps before we have to do that, especially if we're changing work status or the levy classification. So those things need to be done first. Depending on, it seems to be a bit of a random process, and or if we're applying for higher levels of cover, ACC will intercept the application and they'll want to review it before they issue the offer. And then they issue the offer, which is done automatically or after they've reviewed it. You've got to accept the offer, and then your policy's in place. So there's
Interesting.
steps.
And like, why would someone not necessarily like? Why would someone even get private income protection instead of just getting ACC?
Well, because ACC only cover for accidents. So private income protection will cover you for accidents, illnesses, degenerative diseases, all of those other things that ACC don't cover. Well, excluding, policy limitations. Okay, I'm talking best case scenario here. You've got medical history, or depending on your occupation, you might not even be able to get income protection. And then there's income protection, and then there's business income protection. So some of those products have offsets with ACC and some don't. So that's where the advisor comes in to give proper advice around that and what's best for the client. Because if you had a combination of ACC, well, you have to have ACC anyway. You have ACC and you have income protection. You can actually claim on both of them up to, the maximum levels of what you're either insured for or what you'll get from ACC.
And then there's a cover, like if you die of an accidental death. I don't know if there's like a funeral grant, and then your kids will get a certain amount each week. And
Yep.
do you know much about that?
Yep. So those are called the fatal entitlements, and they are based on a percentage of your, income or slash your claimable income with ACC. So that's another consideration factor that I do mention in my sort of proposal when I send those out to the clients is that when you lower your ACC, those entitlements change as well. So that risk can also be mitigated with life insurance. So that's something that they would be needing to have a look at as well.
And like, obviously you're not advising yourself, but is there a process they often lean towards, like reducing their ACC, getting an income protection that pays on top, or a mortgage protection that pays on top, should I say, and a life insurance?
There is not necessarily a carte blanche rule with that, because, the variables are what's affordable, what is their medical history like, what do they do for a job, all those kinds of things. So, yeah.
So then the risk is really if you reduce it and they're not covered correctly. Is there ever a risk from going from the general ACC to cover plus extra, just in like you're getting the same cover, but just a different type? Like, do you almost always recommend cover plus extra?
Well, I do for self-employed people because, it's a locked-in amount. So if you had a claim, it's a lot easier to get access to the money because it's already agreed upon versus you having to prove your income, and there's a whole rigmarole of questions and information that they need to assess the claimable income. So it's 80% on standard cover, right? It's 80% of what your declared income is. So
And cover plus extra is just, this is the amount, there's not 80% of that?
totally. It's 100%. Your entitlement is 100% of the nominated cover. It is taxed before it hits your account, but so is the standard cover entitlement.
Yes, it just makes sense. I mean, is it slightly more expensive relative
A
to...
little bit, but negligible because the benefits are better.
Yeah.
That is if you're implementing dollar for dollar. If you were looking at reducing it, then that's where the savings come in. But yeah,
And
or
what,
changing CU codes.
and in terms of like specific examples, because a lot of people will hear this and it'd be a little bit hard to pull together. So specific examples of what people do in this industry and that industry, like to just sort of paint the picture of who actually qualifies. I know non-PAYE, but...
Okay. Anyone who earns an income who is self-employed and fits the criteria for Cover Plus Extra can go on Cover Plus Extra. I have lawyers, I have physiotherapists, I have lots and lots of tradies. They love me because they hate the admin headache of dealing with that sort of stuff. So they're the ones. Lots of financial advisors.
I'll use you. Interesting.
Yes, doctor, chiropractors. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, because I was looking at something from some insurance company and it was like 1% of contractors have it, and some like 27% of established businesses. So 99% of people, and I've run ads. So I essentially run ads being like, you can customize your ACC, use the money you save to go towards an income protection. You can talk to an advisor about that. And most people I talk to have no idea about it.
Yeah, I know, it seems crazy. You actually can find the information on the ACC website, but it clearly says before you start the application that they recommend you seek financial advice. Because if you're going to be going, I hate ACC so much, I just want to pay as little as possible to them, you can set yourself up on a Cover Plus Extra policy. But if you needed to claim, all you're going to get is $680 based on the minimum. Now, if you haven't mitigated the reduction, then you're kind of screwed, especially if you have a very bad accident that's going to last for a long-term period. So they don't want any part of that. So hence why they say we recommend that you get financial advice, and I recommend that as well.
And can you speak to, because, I got some hate from advisors, and some advisors don't touch it because of they're fearful of the consequence of the advice and whatnot. So can you speak to the pain point of why advisors don't do it and maybe why they should, or use someone like you?
I can, because going back to that thing that we talked about before, it's a liability for them to manage it. So those advisors that have said that to you, they probably got stung. So they may have used it one day as the door opener to have that conversation with them. They did it. They set it all up, or they told the client to go and do it. If you set it up, then it will create a savings, and it's going to fund this policy that we're putting in place over here. If the client didn't do it, or they set it up for the client and the client didn't pay the bill, ACC cancelled the policy. So now they're not on Cover Plus Extra at that, lower level. And the first person they blame is the financial advisor. And that's true. I've heard it a million times. So that's why, and I've even heard about a story, one financial advisor had a claim, public liability, professional indemnity claim, because he said he was going to do it. He actually forgot or something or other, didn't do it. So admitted that. He ended up having to pay whatever to the client for his, for not following through with what he said. So that's why they don't want to touch it. And I do understand that. Hence, when I started thinking about this, that there was a massive gap in the marketplace. It's the clients that are getting shafted, because these options are available, but it seems very sort of hard to access it because nobody wants to go near it. The accountants it's out of scope. Financial advisors don't want a bar of it because it's the liability. The poor client is the one that's getting shafted because they don't know about it.
Yeah. And so where the advisor can get it in the wrong places, they reduce the ACC, or they set it up and the client doesn't pay it.
Yeah. So they might have talked to the client. So reducing it isn't always the right thing to do. Okay, I'll just kind of say that it's not necessarily always the right thing to do. But if they have, let's say, restructured onto Cover Plus Extra, right, and by doing that process, it did create a savings, which the advisor said, hey, let's use this, which will help fund the insurance program, without changing the ACC, they might have only been able to afford maybe a 13-week wait on their mortgage protection or their insurance, income protection, or whatever it is. And then the advisor said, well, with the savings, we can redirect the funds into pumping up your insurance program, and we can bring that back to a 4-week wait. Now, if their CPX policy got lapsed or was lapsed for non-payment, now they're paying for something that they couldn't really afford because they're back on standard cover. So that's where the issues come in. It really has to be tightly managed. And I always did that as part of our process when I was a financial advisor. I managed it very tightly. And so now, and hence now why I've just sort of stepped away from insurance altogether, and I run this business, and it's gaining massive traction actually, because people know that it's a great product for the client, for the self-employed clients. It mitigates that risk of them not having to manage it. They can just do the referral, and I have systems and processes to make sure that I'm keeping in touch with those clients and reviewing their policies, and so I'm catching those anomalies when they happen.
Yeah, and you've obviously got to access the technology that some people don't, which is pretty cool. I mean, it makes sense. Like, you just think a lot of advisors are fearful of touching it. If just more knew that it's important for clients, you probably get a lot of referrals.
Yeah. Some people say, look, you shouldn't reduce it. And they're quite right in some cases. Yeah, because I do have some clients that don't have income protection. They couldn't get it because of the terms or their occupation or something like that. And so in that case, you definitely want to be setting it at a higher level so that in the event of an accidental claim, they know that they've only got ACC to rely on to protect their income. So, it's just, there's no one stop shop for every client. It's definitely a personalized process for each of them.
Can you speak a little bit more on when is the wrong time to reduce, or when have you seen good times and bad times?
I wouldn't say there's reduce or restructure.
So the restructure makes sense most instances for self-employed people.
Yeah.
But like if you're going to reduce how much you pay, when is that often not a good idea?
Okay, yeah. So that wouldn't be a good idea if you couldn't get any income protection, any form of income protection. So that might be in the form of a loss of revenue, a key person, um, mortgage protection, or standard income protections, So that would be due to your medical history that won't allow you to get the insurance. They won't offer it to you. Sometimes your occupation class means that you can't get the insurance. It's a very risky job that you do. So in those cases, it wouldn't be a very good idea to reduce your ACC to the minimum.
So it's mostly a lack of qualification for the insurance product is the most
Pretty
common.
much, yeah.
And the time when you usually have seen it done by advisors, obviously you're not saying that they should do it, but
I'll give you a situation, a scenario. A client went through the underwriting process. For some reason, they declined him for income protection. We were originally looking at putting him on to a lower level of cover with ACC, but because of that, what we did was we applied for the highest maximum, and ACC accepted that. So,
interesting. So you usually increase it, like for example, if they can't get certain covers, and this is actually a great option for them. Maybe they have a really high risk occupation. Maybe they have a high risk pastime. They're got a hobby of driving race cars, and they do it 20 hours a week or something.
exactly. Yeah, they're more likely to have a claim. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then there's some insurance products as well that, will cover you for, like a pilot, I think, for example. As long as you're not flying the plane for your job, you're covered. But while you're flying that plane as a pilot and getting paid to do it, you're not covered under the insurance policy. I think there's some sort of funny thing like that. So, yeah, there's there's variables. I have another client who, she is a dermatologist. She has, massive mortgage, family, kids, blah blah blah. They could only apply for a certain amount of private insurance just because of levels that were able to be offered to her in that. And so, if dialing her down to the minimum with ACC was not an option, because that couldn't be replaced or mitigated with private insurance. So if the worst case was to happen and she passed away, the husband would actually need those fatal entitlements from ACC, plus all the insurance to pay for their lifestyle moving forward.
Yeah, okay. So it's more just about value for money.
Yeah.
It's not so much that you're reducing cover. It's more that you're like, hey, the odds that I have an accident is relatively low. So why don't I hedge it a little bit by having these other products? But if I can't, let's maximize what I can do, sort of thing.
Yeah. For me, Cover Plus Extra it's actually just a level of certainty, an extra level of certainty that the client has because of the amazing benefits available in the product. With it being an agreed value, with it being a locked in amount that you have to, that's what you're going to get at claim time, but you also know that that's what you're going to have to pay every year. It's sort of flatlined. Yeah.
What's most common? Do you see with your clients they're reducing it usually?
Not necessarily. A lot of them do. I think it also comes down to how much of a risk taker the individual is. Some people go, hey, ACC, they shafted me one time, blah, blah, blah. I just want to pay the minimum, the dead minimum. But they've got a comprehensive, robust insurance program in the back end and they're happy. And then other times, it's what the key thing is, what do you need? What would you need to bridge that period between ACC 7-day stand down and when that income protection starts? So it's going to be, that bridging period is going to be a minimum of 3 weeks, because the income protections have a 4-week, 8-week, or a 13-week wait, or longer. And so it's just working out what do you need in that bridging period. Now, there could be other insurance products in place as well, that like an accidental type thing that would be paid out if you broke your leg or something. I have that, so I know what that is. If I break my leg and I'm in a cast, I'll get a sum of money, and so those sort of things can help to mitigate or bridge that period before the income protection starts if they have that.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more on that wait period? So like, how long? So you cooked, you had a car accident, you go to claim. How long are you usually waiting, or what? Do they put any criteria on that, or?
Okay, so ACC is a 7-day stand down period. You cover yourself for the first 7 days, and after that, they take over if it's accepted in that. Yeah, so.
And then you got to put in the claim, and hopefully they read it in time. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
chances are you won't get it sorted within that period. But hey, they actually are better, to be honest. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you have a car accident, you go to the doctor, they'll sort of initiate the claim with ACC. So they send the form through to ACC, and that initiates the medical part of the claim. Lodging the claim for weekly compensation is something different. That's a second claim that you have to, it's the same claim number, but you have to actually physically lodge that.
okay, yeah, well, yeah, maybe on that. So what can you get paid for, and I know you don't do the claims so much, but so you get paid for your income, you get paid for things that help with your rehabilitation or stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. Home help, I don't know, wheelchairs and those little motorbike things. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
There's stuff that you can apply for to get extra assistance from them. Yeah.
If you do that 7 days, so you do the 7 day, you apply, hopefully they get to you in time. Let's say they take 3 weeks to get to you. Do they just pay you back for those 3 weeks missed?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So there'd be a back payment back to when, the due date was that they needed to start paying.
Easy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to talk to you, I'll leave the link in the description. And thanks for coming on, Nat.
Cool. Thank you. It's amazing.